Amar, it's a pleasure to welcome you.
Thank you.
It's an interesting phase for life sciences. Is the startup model in the vertical that you are focusing in is as challenging as the earlier enterprise, because being a serial entrepreneur before, it's not just about the funding, but the bigger challenge is to find the right market and scale it. Scaling becomes, I think, the most acute problems for entrepreneurs in your area. So just wanted to get your input on that.
Yeah, so the environment obviously has changed with some macro factors like the Accountable Affordable Care Act that is coming in. And there is also some challenges in that the FDA has become a little bit more conservative and the burden of proof has become higher. And then the third environment that has happened is that funding for startups in the medical technology area particularly has been impacted because some of the returns that funds have had in the prior years have not been that great, and social media and technology have been pulling a lot of investment dollars away from it. And also with the Affordable Care Act, a lot of healthcare information technology and services have been taking dollars away from medical technology. So there have been those challenges that have changed things from where I used to be to where I am now. But I think the other piece is that if there are good ideas, there will always be capital available for those good ideas. So I find myself in a little bit of a fortunate place where given the track record, and also we have, so that helps, but we've also sort of started morphing our model from not being purely medical technology but also biopharma. So in Ocular Therapeutics, for example, we have a surgical sealant which will be the first sealant of its kind for ophthalmology ever to be approved by the FDA. So it will be a unique product, but that's only about 20% of what we do. About 80% of what we do is in the drug delivery area, which takes our materials technology, combines it with pharmaceuticals, and they go through a drug approval process. So by doing that, we were able to attract dollars from the biotech and biopharma space, which actually is quite robust right now.
Wanted you to expand on health management. That's the area that you're going to eventually move into, and that's what everybody's talking about, especially with the Obamacare. There's a lot of investment that goes into it, and there's a lot of expenses. How do you think there is going to be at some point a stabilization factor in health management?
So, and this is sort of a train headed down a track without its brakes type of a situation, that the healthcare spending is becoming a greater and greater part of GDP. And as people discover more expensive biologic drugs, the cost for drug approvals is higher, so they need to recover it somehow. So you have therapies that may cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual basis. And that clearly is not very sustainable in the long term, is my view. You will probably look at government trying to negotiate down pricing. You may find that you create a two-tier type of a system where the base level, so sort of like saying that the government will give everybody a Corolla, and then if you want to drive a Ferrari, you pay for it yourself type of a situation. So base levels will be provided by the government, higher levels maybe. So there are some lobbying efforts and there are some of those things, because it actually could be liberating for the industry to have that, so that then to some extent patients and physicians have to make up their own minds. So not quite going to a cash pay system like say we have in India, where everybody pays most of it out of pocket and insurance is just starting out. But I think in the US there needs to be some of this two-tiering to be able to allow those decisions to be made personally. Otherwise, if there is no accountability on an individual basis, everybody wants the Cadillac, the best treatment possible, and the system just cannot afford that.
If this thing continues, I think medical tourism is going to increase. It's been slowly getting there. So India is one of the destinations people go to, for orthopedic, for dental, for even for some heart, surgeries, etc. Where do you think the US system has to correct itself between the model that Canada and UK adopts and what we have now?
Yeah, so I think clearly US system, we spend the maximum amount on a per capita kind of basis and even GDP basis, but we don't get probably the same bang for our buck in terms of care, because the care is very expensive. Part of it is because it's not very transparent as to what actually costs. So you can take a CT or an MRI scan, and from place to place, it costs can be very different. Drug costs can be very different. So I think having the electronic health record to some extent will help over there, in which you can start tracking some of these things, you can start comparing it. So first element of that has to be that improved data access and transparency. So once there is data, you can then start running comparable analyses. You will find places where there is fraud, Medicare fraud. You can eliminate those. You can eliminate probably wastage, misprescriptions that create problems and stuff. So a lot of these things are not coming from anybody's particular pocket as such. So they should not impact the payers or the care either way. It will improve the profitability of the payers, and then having system like the government is putting in to allow that payment to go back and refunded to folks from their premiums might be a good way. So the healthcare IT can really help in these types of things. Then to be able to run algorithms of saying what type of drug responds to what kind of population, linking genomic kind of information with the particular drug response type of things, may prevent some side effect profiles, may improve the effectiveness of treatments, etc., new paradigms. So all of this will come at no cost so you can actually make the system more efficient. Right. So efficiency can allow us to actually improve, keep the cost steady, still and improve the type of care. So medical tourism, I think, also does have a role over here. In the systems in Canada and the UK, the problem is that the wait lists become very long. So if you want care, then it takes forever to kind of get that type of care. So to be able to not be caught in that trap, I don't think the Americans will put through, we like instant gratification. Sure. We're not going to put up with that. So in that case, I've seen people approach me for setting up medical tourism in Belize, for example, which is a 2.5, 3 hour kind of a flight from places in the East Coast. And you can get down there, no time zone change, great little beach. It's a European territory, so approvals are different. Sure. Approvals and stuff. So going to India becomes much further. This is the major procedure that might be, but if it's smaller procedures, you could probably do it in surrounding neighborhoods in the Caribbean and things like that. And I think that should have a role. Free enterprise will find a way.
Right. Coming to research and the investment dollars, when you talk about talent pool, when you talk about pure research dollars, there is this theory here that bigger companies invest billions of dollars behind a single drug, and then after 10 years of its expiration, Indian companies take over. But what Indians are good at is the cookie cutter process. They have a model to replicate, and they replicate that well, and they address the issues in the emerging market. That's why you have the foundations that go there to manufacture their drugs.
Right.
When you as an entrepreneur look at your research, it's a two-part question. One is finding the right talent pool and the integrity to preserve your IP. The second is ROI on investment. So wouldn't it be more economical for you to look for talent pool outside of US, or is it not worth it at the end of the day?
So I think if it is, if you have a high labor cost component to it, or a specialized particular thing that you can't get elsewhere. So I also sit on the board of a company called Axtria, where we do a lot of analytics. So for that type of a play, where it is in the pharmaceutical field as well as other fields, that you have a good talent pool available in India. So we have almost a 3-to-1 kind of a ratio of 3 in India, 1 in the US, and we'll be hiring about 100 people in India in just this year. So in those types of areas, it makes sense. If you're going to make a pill that is to be swallowed and it's a small molecule, then sure, the Indian generic play, but that's not the business that we are in. Sure. We are in the business of drug delivery, creating sort of new drugs from that standpoint, and that talent pool is not available as easily in India. And then the regulations and the difficulty is setting up businesses, the distance, those make it harder for us to kind of justify doing it in India versus doing it in the US, capital availability, etc. So the US is still a better place for those types of efforts. If there is a high labor component or a generic pill or something like that, then or buying bulk drugs. So we buy sometimes bulk actives from India. So in those types of things, I think there is a play.
Right. Amar, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.